Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and Prez, and this is episode 342. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host Prez. That is at _Presidente on Twitter. Prez, how are you doing on this Thursday evening?
You almost led the people to a doppelganger. You almost led them astray, Shwin.
I know. Yeah.
I wonder how much I would have to pay
amok.
how much I would have to pay to get that handle. I don't even know who has it.
Probably. Yeah, we don't know who has it.
It is some person in some language I don't know. Well, anyway, I'm doing all right.
Good to hear. I am also doing all right, and we're going to talk about why we're doing all right instead of great because the Knicks lost yesterday. But before we do that,
all right, instead of panicking dramatically like fucking half of these dramatic ass Knicks fans do. Jesus fucking Christ, relax, y'all.
Yeah, I've definitely never been one of those people. All right, before we get started, do have to make a few announcements. The first being that the Strickland has an Instagram. Check that out. That is at the Strickland on Instagram. Posting all kinds of new content on there. The Strickland also has a YouTube channel where you may be watching this podcast. If you are and you have not done so already, please hit like and then subscribe to the channel. Also leave us a comment. That would all be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise available on our website. You can find that at www.thestrick.land. There'll be a link that'll take you to the store there. And you can find all kinds of cool shit on there. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, coffee mugs, water bottles, you name it. We've got it. Again, you can find that on our website. The Strickland also has a Patreon, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There's a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland. This podcast that I host every Friday with Prez, you also get access to Takes from Obvious Bozos, our newest podcast that is hosted by Andrew Steele, a.k.a. Doug, alongside Zach. They take your takes that you submit in our Takes from Obvious Bozos channel, and then they grade them on the pod. So check that out. Strickland also has a Discord. Yes, a Discord where you can submit your takes from Obvious Bozos and generally converse with other Knicks fans. It's very fun. I definitely recommend it. There are further tiers. There's a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to Strictly NFL, our newest podcast that is on, you guessed it, the NFL, that is hosted by Constantine and Jeffrey Rasmussen, who you will be familiar with from The Rundown. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, $100 tier. This comes with a variety of additional benefits like listening on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day, whether you choose to subscribe or not, and this would be possible without you. And none of this would be possible without BetOnline. The last of the major pro sports leagues kicks off this week, and BetOnline is your top spot for all your NBA action this season. With MLB postseason, NFL, and college football, and NHL in full swing, BetOnline is your number one source for wagering news, odds, trends, and predictions. Get everything NBA at your fingertips with both desktop and mobile access for every sport anytime. Head to the BetOnline app today and get in on the action. Don't forget to use promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so the Knicks played a basketball game yesterday. They lost to the disgusting and dastardly Celtics, led by the grotesque, inhumane, shambolic excuse of a human being named Kristaps Porzingis and Jason Tatum, who is on his 15th year of being just 19. I don't know. I wasn't really that upset about. I mean, I was upset, like obviously that they lost, but I had them losing this game, which maybe it's part of it. But also, like, I don't really know that. I don't think this game deserves a shit ton of analysis because I think the Knicks played a really good. I think they played really good defense. I want to say that. I think the Knicks defense was pretty fucking excellent in this game after the first quarter, especially.
That was my main takeaway, to be honest. Like, we can talk about all the other stuff, and we should, right? Like, you know, within reason and understanding that this is the first game and it's one game and the sky's not fucking falling and the Celtics aren't going to eat your children or whatever. Like, the main takeaway was like, for me, I'm like, yo, we were good at offense last year. We're probably going to be good at offense this year. I don't know if we'll be top 3, but we'll be all right. The main low-hanging fruit for us is, can we play consistent defense? They played defense in the playoffs. They did not play defense in the regular season. And we know which individuals were mostly to blame for that and all that. So, that's what I was looking for. It was like, how do Julius and RJ look? Are they locked in? How's their technique? How's their effort? How the centers look? Are they healthy? Shit like that. And
Is Evan Fournier still alive?
Is Evan Fournier still alive and on the court?
Not on the court.
Walking around with lead weights. Right. You're right. I shouldn't even be worrying. I should just be worried that he's alive. And camera didn't even cut to him once.
They showed him once at the end, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot. You do be on the Knicks."
Yeah, he's a cheerleader. I'm sure he was wistfully looking at the broadcast of the Wemby Spurs game after he was finished doing 2 hours of sitting or whatever.
Speaking of cheerleaders, I did find out, or I saw yesterday on Instagram, that one of the Knicks City dancers is Indian. So I think that is really the official sign that we have made it in America.
Shout out to Mr. Dolan, such a astute,
progressive mind
businessman, such a progressive mind, and such an astute businessman that our New Jerseys are sponsored by ourselves, sponsored by the Sphere, or sponsored by Sphere. There's no the. My bad.
Yeah. It's like the CIA. It's like CIA. You don't say the. You don't need the.
I mean, you do say the CIA.
You say I'm CIA. You don't say I'm the CIA. Right?
Oh, that's true. That's true. I thought you meant like third person. You're not hey, do you work for CIA? Like it's fucking Target or some shit. No. But not like our defense looked solid. I mean, Julia's effort was like a little all over the place. But like Julia's shit was a lot harder to figure out, aside because we know he can. It's just a matter of will he, right? Always. With RJ, it was more last year. Like sometimes it was effort, but sometimes I was like, I don't know if this motherfucker can move and react fast enough, or if he even knows the right technique. But he was doing well. He was doing his thing. Mitch and Hartenstein both look spry. Quickley and Hart, as usual, look great on defense. Grimes had to defend Tatum a lot, which is tough for anybody who's not above 6'7". That guy gets stronger every year. He was even moving Julius a couple times, which is not nothing. Yeah, I mean, if they can just keep up this level of activity and all that, then even if Julius here or there, or RJ here or there, have like occasional lazy nights on defense, their defense is going to be a lot better, man. And it's like one of those things that it didn't really bear talking about that much in the offseason, because it's literally just like, okay, can they please just be in shape and do the things? Like, it's not like, oh, can you tweak your shooting technique and maintain consistency with different footwork? No, none of that shit. So weird game, sloppy game. I'm happy with the defensive effort. Cool. Yeah. Like,
and I think the major thing for me is I watched the Celtics quite a bit in preseason. Like, they actually were really sharp, and I understand it's preseason, but that's why I was pretty worried about this coming into the game, because our preseason was not good. We did not ever have one game. We didn't have one game with all 9 guys playing. Certainly not all 9 guys without like a minutes limitation or whatever it was. So I was worried about that. And like, I would say my main takeaways were, well, one, to go back to the Julius thing, like, I was pleased with his defensive effort for the most part, but even within like, and the reason it stood out more is because he played like absolute, like, first of all, he played like a fucking asshole on offense, and second, he also just like, and when I say an asshole, this was not one of those where you're like, it was less stop shooting and more like, stop shooting the shots you are shooting. Also shoot open threes. Like, also do that. Stop pump faking. So it was more of a shot selection issue than the volume of shots he was taking. But because he had a bad offensive game, and I know there'll probably be people that are like, he had 7 assists and no turnovers. I challenge you to go back and watch that game and actually tell me he played well on offense. You're lying. He did not play well on offense at all. And
to me, the way I looked at his offense was like, early on, he missed some gimmies, and it just kind of fucked him up.
Yeah, I mean, I get that, but it's like I was actually looking at this today because I saw some tweet that was like, it was some stupid play Cat made yesterday. It was like 10th year in the league. Like, it was kind of like, what the fuck are you doing? You're 10-year vet. He's actually in his 9th year, which made me realize Julius Randle is in his 10th year. And watching some of the decisions he's making in this game, I'm like, I understand it's the first game of the season, so I'm not really losing my mind over it. But I'm like, might just not be, maybe it might not happen, buddy. The processing might just not be there. Anyway, forgetting the offense, it was just a bad offensive game for him, whatever the reasons may be. The defense was a lot better. And then even amidst that, there were these classic moments of just like stupid, lazy Julius stuff. And I clipped 2 of them. I could have clipped more. I didn't feel like it because I was just like, it felt a little gratuitous, but like there were more, especially down the stretch of the game. He just had some plays where you're like, dude, how are you not getting that rebound? He had one where it was like, he literally was in front of Jaylen Brown, and then somehow he just like was not there anymore. And I was like, how did that happen? But he just made these plays where you're like, dude, you're not trying. Like, you're just not trying on this play because it's like, okay, you have to. Okay, so Jaylen Brown and Kristaps are running a pick and roll, right? So Hartenstein is supposed to show to Jaylen Brown to cut off the drive, and then he's supposed to cover back to Porzingis, right? Once he cuts the drive off. Once basically like Randle has time to get back in front. Randle, on his part, has to make the pass to Porzingis hard. He has to like actually try to make it hard. And he didn't try. He just stood there. He literally just stood there without like extending his arms or anything. And it was a wide open 3. And it's like, those are the plays to me that I'm like, I can't.
In the first quarter, right?
I know it was actually in the 4th, but there was a few in the first too.
Yeah. Like we talk about, this is like a tangent, but it'll get its way back to Julius. Like Mitch has historically struggled with stretch 5s, but yesterday, like I thought his coverage dealing with Kristaps was completely fine. The issue was, they would get, because as big as a threat Kristaps was, Tatum's even bigger. So it was like you said, they got the ball out of Tatum's hands, and you need a third guy to come in and just stunt just enough to slow things down to let the second person trapping Tatum get back. And in the first quarter, I don't know if it was the first time this happened or another time, but like Julius, he was late, and you could see him like, no, like, oh fuck, like I'm late. And then he did the like tap his chest thing. Thibs was mad. But it's one of those things where like, this isn't some like hard, thinking 2 passes away. This is just, as Clyde would say, see the ball, see your man, and then know that like you're the help on the very obvious Tatum Kristaps pick and pop, which is going to be their main play. Like, yeah, that's just the stuff that at some point you just gotta accept. Like, the norm is Randall's gonna botch that stuff. You hope he can lock in more, but
I mean, if he's, this is the thing. This is where it just boils. This is what it boils down to. If you're not going to do that shit, then you gotta have like your offense has to make up for it, and it didn't yesterday. It did not at all.
Yeah.
And so like, the way I look at that game yesterday is we got nothing from our top 2 guys. Brunson was terrible yesterday. Like Julius was bad, but if we're just talking offense, I actually thought weirdly Brunson had a pretty good defensive game. But if we're just talking offense, like Brunson was probably worse than Julius. And like,
he was forcing it. It happened like I think 3 or 4 times last season where he would have games where like his shots that he's used to making that like the rest of the league does not get to make with regularity would go in, and he, instead of just becoming more pass first, he's like, I have to establish, like it has to start with the shots. And he's so fucking good that like 9 times out of 10 that works because the shots will fall. But I think he started like 1 for 9 or something like that. And
I just lost count. It wasn't even just like, it's not even about missing shots to me. He did not let anybody get into a rrhythm, and
that's what I'm saying. He didn't pivot from that. He was just like, no, we must start with my shots. Right. Yeah. I have to get going.
And it wasn't like, if you want to hunt your own offense, okay. He wasn't even running plays. He was just like coming up and then just doing shit. And I'm like, like you could literally you go back and watch the first quarter. Like you can watch sets where guys are just like, I guess I'll stand here and like space the floor. Like I guess I don't know what's going on here. And like Mitch had no idea what to do. He's like, "Do you want me to screen? Like what am I doing here?" And it was just a bad game from him. And like you can say, and I've thought this forever. Like Brunson's a amazing scorer, like and a fantastic scorer, which is why like look, he's had a bad last preseason game. He had a bad game yesterday. Really not that worried about it. But as far as like running offense, like actually running sets, getting everybody involved, like so that there's a flow, Quickley's way better than him at that. Like that's not to say Quickley is like, fucking Chris Paul or something, but he's just better at him than that, at organizing and getting dudes touches. And like the best example of this is Grimes. Like Grimes will, if Quickley is starting a point guard, I promise you Grimes isn't going an entire first quarter stint without a single shot. He didn't get a shot up in that entire run, like not one. And none of this was not a case of like Grimes being passive. Like this was not one of those. It was just even when he did get the ball, the closeouts were right on him, so he didn't really have a chance. But Brunson didn't create for him, and he didn't find him. And like I'm gonna be completely honest, this is going to be my thing this year because like Grimes is, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube, my little tag here is pass to Grimes propagandist. Grimes is fucking open a lot in that lineup. He's open a lot because these guys are great at getting into the paint. And once you get into the paint, teams have to collapse on you. And at a certain point, it's on you then to find the open shooter. And guess what? Grimes is often the open shooter because all these dudes will like end up in the paint. It was amazing yesterday because they decided that they should just go challenge Mount Kristaps constantly. But like, I thought Grimes played an awful game. And then to go back to Julius, it was just like, look, man, if you're not going to get it going on offense, you just can't have those. Like, I mean, the other one he had was in transition where like Hartenstein's busting his ass to get back, and he gets back and he just tells Julius like, look, you have to go get Horford because if I go get Horford, he's going to be open anyway. So like, just go over there. I cover Brown for now. And the key in transition is stop the ball, right? If the matchup is fucked up, that's fine. The key is stopping the ball. That's the first goal. And they had accomplished that. All Julius had to do was not be a lazy fucking asshole and just go over to Al Horford. Instead, what did he do? He just stood there. He literally just stood there. You watch the fucking replay. He just stands there. Jaylen Brown makes the only good pass he probably made the entire game. Passes it right to Horford, who's no joke, absolutely wide open for three. And in this entire, and by the way, he's wide open for three. Go watch who like at least attempts to go out there to him. Guess what? I'll tell you what. It ain't Randle. It's not Randle. No, it's Hartenstein who leaves Jaylen Brown to go try and contest Al Horford. I mean, he wasn't close. Al Horford got a wide open three, but he's the guy that went up there. And after the play, you can just see Hartenstein kind of like throw his hands out like, what the fuck? That's inexcusable. I'm sorry. You can't sit there the entire summer and talk about, oh, I'm going to be more efficient. This is the first time I get to study film. I want to get better at stuff, accountability, blah, blah, blah. Okay, well then like these are the play. Like, I'm sorry. You get judged on this shit. Like that's the price of being one of the best players on a team. And not just one of the best players on a team. One of the best players on a team that has actual expectations. Like this is not some fucking year where, oh, well, if we could make a run at the 7th seed, that'd be great. No. Like this is not that year. This is a year where you have expectations. So these little margins, these little games, and especially these little margins against a team that's the benchmark. That should be a benchmark for you in the conference. This should be a game where you're like every possession is, I'm not saying it's the playoffs, but like possessions that where you're like do the basic stuff. Do the things that are logic. Like this wasn't like if he missed a rotation, but he was trying to do the right thing, I'd be like, okay, fair enough, right? You deal with that. Like there was one somebody highlighted, I think it was a layup that I forgot who it was, might have been Holiday or Tatum got it late in the fourth quarter, where it was like it seemed like Randle, like he thought he needed to rotate out to a 3-point shooter. He probably should have just stayed where he is instead of get an easy layup. I didn't have a problem with that because I'm like, okay, that to me is not a lack of effort or just like not caring. That's just you fucked up. That happens, But those two plays really frustrated me. And there's stuff in the first quarter, if you really want to go look at it, where you're like, dude, what the hell are you doing? Was it better overall than what we've seen from him? Yeah, for sure. Like it was much, like, if you get that on average compared to last season, that's a step up. But obviously on nights where the offense isn't there for you, like that's not good enough. And yeah, like what I would say about this game is the 3 to 9 guys, so everybody other than Brunson and Randle, they did like on you individually. You want to say DiVincenzo wasn't that great? Okay, fine, whatever. But like their collective contribution, those 3 to 9 guys, you take that every night. If you get that from them every single night as a collective group, right? RJ, Quickley, Grimes, DiVincenzo, Hartenstein, Mitch, like you get that from them every single night. Not that all of them played great, but as a collective group, if you get that contribution from them every single night, you'll take that. And you'll win a lot of games. But that was unacceptable from both those guys. I mean, Brunson said as much. Randle did not. By the way, he did the thing. You know what he did? You know what he did after the game?
Did he peace?
No. He did the other thing where they asked him.
What's the other thing?
When he's like, oh, like, you guys really struggled tonight. What do you think you could have done better? And he's like, oh, yeah, we got to look at we got to do this. You guys like, oh, yeah, we got to do that, huh? We, motherfucker? How about you? How about I? A little I might be nice every now and then, Julius. I'm not going to make a big deal about it. But, like, it was an annoying game to lose because your top 2 guys did nothing. And we outplayed the Celtics. We outplayed them on a night that, like, our top 2 guys did jack shit.
And their top 2 guys killed it.
Yeah. Like, Kristaps and Tatum were fucking great last night. And our top 2 guys played like shit. And we probably still win that game if we just shoot okay from the free throw line, which is another thing. I'm actually a little bit worried about this now with Julius. He did not shoot the free throw well in preseason. We know he's had random like stretches and years. Right,
I always expect him to be a bad free throw shooter in like crunch time close games, but the rest of the game I'm usually not worried about. That was the weird part.
It was bizarre. But I'm a little worried about this because he shot bad at the free throw line in preseason, if I remember correctly, and carried that into the first game. We know, you remember his first year in New York, where like the first month of the season, the guy was like a 51% free throw shooter or whatever, and you were like, what, like, are you okay? Like, are you like, are we good here? So maybe it's just a bad stretch he's having, but we need to get through that. On to some of the good things. I thought RJ, I think Jeff did a thread for the Strickland today, and he highlighted Quickley and RJ, who quite frankly were like, those 2 and Hartenstein were the only 3 guys you could say played well. I don't think Hart or DiVincenzo played poorly, but like those 3 actually played well. And like he said that this was RJ's best defensive game as a Knick. I'm not sure if that's accurate. Like, because I don't really like remember all of them, but it was definitely up there. It was up there.
Like, yeah, like I was going through just a lot of the possessions for a thread I also did, and he still has a slow reaction time sometimes, but like everything else was there. Like my biggest things for him in terms of on ball and pick and roll defense was like, just don't get hit by the screen and then be like Brunson's technique is so funny. This is my favorite thing about him on moving screen. No, separate from that is also hilarious. But like his strategy, his technique for going over screen is awful, but he's a tank and he's fast as shit. So like he'll just like take the hit and just like Twitter bug around it and just like keep going after the hit and just sort of be in the play, even though he's short. But like everybody else has to you have to like get low, you have to like wrap your arm around the screener and push off of them. Like this is standard shit around the league. That last year RJ was like, no, I will do no such thing. And that's not without even getting to like him being a little too heavy and all that. But yesterday he was not flying around, but he was like he was just solid. He was like using his physicality to get around screens. He was trying to be physical with Tatum, which, again, I mentioned it before, but Tatum's strong as shit, stronger than RJ. So like the fact that RJ could be physical back and at least like not let him get to his spots easily, not get crossed up easily, all that shit, that's pretty good. He has some good closeouts as well. He had some deflections, if I'm not mistaken, especially early on. So, it was a great start to him on that end.
I do think like the matchup with the Celtics always seems to suit him for some reason. Like I think maybe because
him and Tatum, the fucking
workout buddies.
Yeah, they're workout buddies. So It's personal, but it was also that, and like you could tell he was up for the big game. Like his hands were like high, like up high, like a motherfucker. It was very much like first game of the season vibes, and I don't even necessarily mean like NBA. I mean like anything, like first games of high school. Like you get hyped up for that shit, right? And it was in the Garden, so like it was good. I was really pleased with RJ's defense because again, like we're not gonna have games like that where Brunson and Randle missed that many bunnies and we missed fucking 12 free throws. Like we're just not. Like I know people are worried, but like that's just rare. So if we can have the defensive effort that we had yesterday, like this team's gonna be good, man.
Yeah, I mean, like if he plays like that defensively every night, you'll take it. Offensively, I don't want to belabor the point, but I did not love some of his shot selection, especially when he put the ball on the deck.
I feel like he was trying to, upon partial rewatch, I felt like, I mean, he always makes kind of bad decisions, as we know, but like, there was definitely sometimes I was like, is he trying to like show Kristaps up here on switches and shit like that?
I think he might have had that in his head. Like it could definitely have played a mind. I don't know what it was, but him and Julius kept trying to test him. And the thing is, if you're gonna go at Kristaps, like one, I think that's not the optimal choice. But if you're gonna do it, don't pussyfoot around it. Don't try to be cute. Don't try to finesse your way. No, go through him. Because as strong, I know that Kristaps has gotten stronger. Guess what? He's still 7'3", and you're still fucking 6'6", built like a brick shithouse. You go into his chest. You don't try and let me finesse this up high off the glass. Let me scoop layup. He tried a floater from a standstill, which I still can't believe. I'm like, you literally took a floater a foot separated from Kristaps from a standstill. What did you think was going to happen, dude? He tried to dunk on him in transition, which was ridiculous. And then
the transition thing that was funny was like because at first I was like, oh shit, this motherfucker just tried to dunk on Kristaps. He ain't got it like that, even if he's in better shape. But then I was looking at the replay, and what he tried to do was he tried to fool Kristaps into making Kristaps think he was going to go for a dunk, and then switch to a scoop. But Kristaps, like,
he's too big for that.
He's too big. He could cover for both those things very easily unless you go into him. So Kristaps was like, "All right, bro," and just like
that's the problem. If you're gonna do that, like again, he especially because he had a full head of steam, right? If you're gonna do that, you go straight into him. He tried to like get the corner on him basically, and he just did not have a chance. As soon as he went up with it, I was like, "Oh man, this is not gonna end well." But like I thought some of his takes were really good, and I thought some of his decision making in the second half, I thought his second half decision making was a lot better off the drive. He had one really nice kick to Brunson in the corner for it was like a wide open three. I mean, it was a beautiful feed. He made some good plays, but it's just like, again, it's those 3 or 4 stupid shots he takes that takes an 8 of 16, 8 of 17 for 24 points night and turns it into 8 of 20. And like, in a one-off game, maybe that doesn't matter that much, but over the course of a season, it does, especially in terms of his individual efficiency, which has been his biggest bugaboo for his entire career. And a lot of that is self-inflicted, just bad shot selection. Like there are times where it's like, hey man, you're allowed to drive and then nothing is there. Just pull it back out. Nobody's going to be upset. They'll be fine. Like those are the plays that he's got to get that out of his diet because it's what kills him. It's what kills his efficiency. Like this is a night where you take away those 4. Let's just say, like literally, I can count them on my hand. Stupid fadeaway on Kristaps that gets blocked. Stupid off the dribble 3 he takes early in the clock against Horford. Stupid standstill floater thing he does over Kristaps, blocked. Stupid dunk he tries on Kristaps where he has no angle, blocked. That's 4 shots right there that easily you can take those out. Like they were not forced. There was no time issue.
How many shots did he end up taking total?
20. So you're talking 20. About, that's 20% of his shots. That's
what I'm saying. So if he's 8 for 20, you take 3 or 4 of those out, and then he had 2 grenade 3-pointers that were just like nobody was making those. Right. That you take 2 more. I don't know. Now you're talking like 8 of 15, 8 of 14, right? You're talking fucking
even,
efficient.
Yeah, and even anecdotally, like the grenade threes, nobody's blaming him for those. You know what I mean? Like even if we at the end of the game, if we saw his line in the 8 of 20, when you're thinking about it, you're not like those aren't the shots you're thinking of. Like
right.
Those are just like
you're thinking about the garbage shots or whatever in the paint and all that shit.
And those are the ones that you can get rid of. You can't get rid of the grenades because unfortunately you just got to get the shot up.
The funny part is like just talking to people in the Discord and on Twitter after the game. If you just go back and look at all of RJ shots, like there were shots he took that were new for him, and nobody really had issue with those. Like 2 or 3 middies that were like he made 2 of them and missed 2 of them.
Well, I think all of those were ones. So the one was off a baseline. It was like a sideline out of bounds.
There was only one that I was like, and that's the one we talked about where it was like the fadeaway on Kristaps, which is like, that's not the easiest fadeaway because this motherfucker's big.
and you're not explosive enough to get the separation you need on that shot.
Right. So but the other ones are like, and that's what I'm saying. Like if you would have told me like RJ was taking mid-range shots and that wasn't the issue he had with his shot selection, I'd be like, this is a weird timeline, right? Like, so
yeah. No, I mean, I had no problem with those shots. It's just the ones where it's like these are like no hope shots, right? These are no hope shots. Like, and the Horford one was like, look, if you want to take,
you have or they have really bad missed threes right before it. Like that was what happened with one of the shots on Kristaps and Grimes was cutting wide open.
Yeah.
Wide open. I mean, that's not, you mentioned it before, but like the entire starting lineup not always, but they often miss Grimes. Not just stand still, but also cutting.
Yeah, and to be fair to RJ, I do think some of the stuff that we saw from Randle too, I think some of that is because of how Brunson started the game, where it was like he was not he just didn't get anybody involved. So when those guys got the opportunities, it was like, all right, I'm getting my shot up right now, right? Like I'm getting this I got the ball finally. I'm getting my shot up, and that happens sometimes. But like I think RJ played a pretty solid game, and again, like even with the bad shot selection, I still think he had a good game. He was the Knicks' second best player as far as I was concerned. But like that's what stops you from making the kind of like next
the jump.
Step. Yeah,
the leap, yeah.
So it's look, it's the first game of the season. Hopefully, year 5 for him. This all clicks, but yeah, I mean, look,
I'll say like on top of that, like you hope that clicks, but like I tried to tell some people this yesterday after the game, but that was perhaps not speaking to my colleagues when they were in the most receiving of moods. But like yes, you can. It's totally valid to be like, why hasn't he improved his reads in certain respects and blah blah blah. But like, to me, like, yeah, that's a big takeaway. It's also a big takeaway to me that like his defense has looked better than it has in a long time, and his jump shooting has looked better than it has in a long time, right? Like non-grenade threes, he made 2 of 3. Free throws, he made almost all of. What do you go? 6 for 7, I think.
Yeah, 6 for 7.
Yeah, so 6 for 7
has been really good even in preseason.
Yeah, I don't know how to do this stat poll, so listeners, if you know, please tell me and I will give you a shout out. But like, I was wondering if, I don't know, I thought about this in the preseason first, but like, has he had a stretch shooting free throws as well as he did in the preseason at any point in his career, like any 40 free throw stretch or whatever like that? But it feels like this is up there as far as his comfort shooting free throws. So like, in this game, he hit 2 off the dribble mid-range shots. A third was in and out, and a fourth was a dumbass shot that was an air ball. And then he hit 2 of 3 3-pointers. The one he missed was the pull-up 3, which was like a little too much dip in his chip. And then he hit a bunch of free throws. So like if you just take a step back, like, yeah, there was ways he could get better, but like he had a pretty fucking good jump shooting night, which is important versus a defense like the Celtics that forces you to take hard shots and to make jump shots, right? Like they're gonna pack the paint against the Knicks, right? More teams are gonna do that this year than they did last year, not just because of Mitch, but because they're gonna dare the Knicks to pass. They're gonna dare Jalen Brunson to pass. They're gonna dare They're gonna dare these guys to make the right read. So like we have to be a better jump shooting team. We have to be a better decision making team, but we also got to be a better jump shooting team. And if you tell me RJ is gonna be like not awful at shooting jump shots, like I mean, it's only one game. You know, I could shoot fucking well for one game. Doesn't mean I'm a good shooter, but like, I'll take that as far as optimism goes from one game, man. Like, it looked comfortable. It was similar to what we saw in FIBA, and between that and the defense, I'm like, yo, would like if you ask me like gun to my head, would I sign up for a season of like RJ still like up and down efficiency, but his defensive effort is there, and he's not just a shit show from jump shooting, and he can hit free throws? Yes. Where do I sign? I will sign right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that is definitely true. You know, it's kind of like last year he was 53 true shooting. His second year in the league, when he shot 40% from three, he was 53.5 true shooting. So not a significant difference, but I promise you, it felt much different. And they got he was defended very differently, which matters. So
yeah, even with his bad decisions, like if he takes those bad decisions versus centers who are not Kristaps, like he can probably get away with it a little. That's not to justify it, but like that's just kind of how things are. Like I know, like he's really. I told y'all on the last pod I was on, like this motherfucker is gonna be in the conversation for Defensive Player of the Year because he's gonna get blocked as long as he plays. What is it? 65 games? Is that the requirement now?
Yes.
Yeah. So if he plays 65 games, big if, like he did last year, he will be in the mix because the Boston media mafia is gonna overhype this big breadstick ass motherfucker.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah, no, I thought RJ played really well. And I mean, there's really not much to say about him because I don't really want to talk about him right now. But I thought Hartenstein was awesome last night. His hustle was crazy. And on a night where Mitch really just couldn't get anything going, really.
Mitch got in trouble, and they were really like, we've talked about this, but like the Knicks grifter ball is not a surprise anymore. So teams they're gonna push him to the limit. They're gonna push the refs to the limit, and they're just gonna fucking send three guys at him all the fucking time. And it's gonna be like there's gonna be games like that where like he either draws fouls because he's more tired because of that, or he just it's just weird. So like Hartenstein's role this year is even bigger than last year, and it was a long time ago, but like Hartenstein didn't start the year well last year. He was injured and we didn't even really know it. And remember, we were like, why can't this fucking guy grab a rebound? And this was for like months on end. It was so weird, but he came in ready to roll. He looks like he's in great shape. He didn't play for Germany. He said, fuck that. I need to be ready for the Garden. Plus, Germany don't need me. They got FIBA Schroeder and FIBA Franz. So, yeah, he was great. The best play of the game was where I think Brunson hit him when Brunson got chapped, and then he did a really athletic drive, and then he did the wraparound pass to Grimes, who hit the three, who got fouled. That drive from Hartenstein was something else. If anything, it just showed that he's like feeling very mobile right now. So it's good, man. I'm ready for year 2 of the 48 minutes of capable centers.
Yeah, it was also really cool that he passed to Grimes in the corner.
Yeah, what a crazy idea.
Yeah. But yeah, look, obviously, the Knicks player of the game was Emmanuel Quickley last night. He had 24 points and 11 shots. He had 5 rebounds, 4 assists. Maybe I have the numbers reversed. He had a steal. He had a really nice game. He hit shots when the Knicks really needed them. I thought that bench unit, like even though DiVincenzo didn't make a shot, even though Hart didn't play that well, I just thought they like actually ran offense. They actually ran sets. I think they helped turn the tide of the game in the end of the first. early second quarter, got the Knicks back into it, and I just thought he led that group, and he led them in a way that was like, it felt very much like, no, like I am the point guard of this team at this point
I got
in time.
Shaw.
Yeah,
I got
like give
Shaw.
me the ball and I will.
Mhm.
And he was calling plays out. He was directing traffic. It was actually pretty funny to watch DiVincenzo have no idea where he was supposed to be on a few plays. And
There was definitely a couple, especially early on, where he was just like, "What the fuck?"
yeah, and Josh Hart was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And then finally Quickley was like, "All right, just come set me a screen. Like, just come do that, and we'll figure it
Dante
out."
was probably like, "What? I don't have to like curl around 17 screens
Yeah.
and
What do you mean I
create
don't
a
have to set a
symphony of
screen?
motion.
Yeah,
Go
I
to the
don't have to.
corner. What the fuck is that about?" Like,
Yeah. But he played really well. I thought he took care of the ball decently. His start to the second half when he got back in the game was not clean. I thought he was over penetrating a little bit, but he got his shit together again. He did what you have been begging him to do, which is, hey, when guys go under, make them pay. He made them pay. He did not hesitate
oh
on the
my
shots
god,
the entire night.
it was crazy, bro. Like 2 of the 3 times he went under and he shot it, they went like way the under. And part of that was because it's guards getting screened by Mitch like 30 feet away. So like it takes a lot to get around that
Yeah,
screen.
Mitch's screening, by the way, for as poor as it was, that was probably one of his better screening games I've ever seen.
He was cleaning fucking little dudes like Peyton Pritchard out like flies, bro. And Quickley, like it gave Quickley even more time to like take a dribble and like angle. But there was one of them where
It's Tatum.
he just pulled that shit like not even on balance. And I was like, God damn, bro. Like that's when I knew he was feeling it. So I fully expect if that keeps up, they will go over, and then that's when you get to the fun stuff, right? When he has defenders on his hip and he
Then
can
he's
pass
basically
out
playing
and
5-on-4.
exactly. But if they don't, then fuck it, because like the other like it's funny, like that was half of it, but so like I felt like yesterday was almost like a combination of last year Quickley and like rookie Quickley, when he was just like, all I know how to do is bomb threes and fucking grift fouls on floaters and shit like that. And but he was doing it, so obviously he's more of a vet now, and he was so controlled, not just with the threes, but he was like getting a lot of those foul calls like at will. It was one play, it bit him in the ass and it didn't work, but like I think literally the other 3 times it worked, and he was able to just bait guys into fouling him. And that stuff is not just good for efficiency because it's free throws, right? But it's also like the kind of plays where you can like give your team a break almost. Like they can just kind of not watch, but like they get to catch their breath a little bit, and then they get free throws. So like it does help a little bit. And nobody else on our team is grifty. Like Brunson and Randle kind of grift fouls, but it's like with kinetic energy, like going downhill very fast, and they just give defenders an impossible choice. Quickley's like, yep, you might got me. You might got me. You might got me. Nah, you don't got me. And then you're just at the free throw line. So it was, we've talked about it. Like the next step for Quickley is he has all these skills and he's already fucking great. But it's just playing the right keys at the right time, basically. Like he can play all the things now. It's just picking and choosing when to use each of his superpowers. And yesterday he played them keys pretty well, man. Like he was doing the damn thing. And Thibs closed with him like he did a lot last season. I know there was a subset of Knicks fans who were like, oh, what if because he didn't close with Quickley in the Miami Heat series, he's never going to close with Quickley again? And you don't convince Thibs to close with you like 30 times, and then that shit just doesn't disappear. Like I don't care what happened in the playoffs. Like we saw it in, like when he was talking about the extension. Like Thibs loves Quickley now, man. Like he's not starting him or anything, but like he fucks with Quickley.
Yeah, I mean, just to go back to it, I thought Quickley the fourth quarter, like he was cooking, and then Brunson and Randle came in, and for some reason, and even when they first came in, they were letting Quickley cook. He hit that step back on right in Derek White's face, which was fucking nasty.
That was like That was the heat check of all heat checks.
That was probably one of the best shots of his career. And then
that's one of his go-to moves. Like he didn't really do that a lot last year because he didn't isolate quite as much. But like the year before that, that's that crossover move, and then he just steps left and just flings that shit. Like, and he practices that shit on Instagram. You could see it. Like,
yeah,
that is a fucking disrespectful shot, bro.
Yeah, that was a really nice shot. And then I don't know why they completely the last 4.5, 5 minutes of the game, it just basically turned into like the Brunson show, the Brunson and Randle show, and that was not great. Obviously it didn't end well. The Knicks offense completely petered out. I just thought that was a big mistake, but hopefully you live and then you learn. The last thing I want to say about this game is I actually think Thibs coached a really good game.
I think so too.
They adjusted to the Celtics.
He even challenged calls.
Yeah, well, the call that call was ridiculous that it didn't get overturned. Doris can go.
I know it was the correct challenge. I was telling my Celtics friends at the bar, I was like, "Oh my god, he challenged the call that he can actually win. He didn't just move on with the game. We're gonna get it," and then it didn't get it.
Doris Burke is a complete joke for everything she was doing last night, but that play in particular, her like, it's obviously a foul. You're a fucking moron. Shut up. The fact that she has a job commenting on games is an embarrassment. Anyway,
it's just I just hate ref pandering. Like
it's not ref pandering. She was just on the fucking Celtics nuts the entire game. It was ridiculous. She's like, oh my god, when Kristaps committed that, like he elbowed Hartenstein in the face. First of all, she was literally like, what is he supposed to do? What is he supposed to do?
Not elbow people in the face, dude.
And not just that. She was like, they showed the replay, and she's like, I don't see the contact. I was like, what are you fucking blind? Like, what are you watching here? It was a joke. She was embarrassing. She claims to be a Knicks fan, so maybe she's like overcompensating on national television, so nobody accuses her of bias. But guess what? The only bias I think she has is that she's fucking like crazy anytime the Knicks are on. All she wants to talk about is the other team. The only thing she wanted to talk about the Knicks, and she brought this up in the last 10 seconds of the game, was about she was all of a sudden out of nowhere. The game's at like, the game's over. Basically, she's like, so what is this? What is the playoff ceiling of this team, though? Why are we talking about that in the season opener? Is that really that's really the conversation we're having? Anyway, I don't want to talk about her anymore. I thought Thibs coached a really good game. After the first quarter, they held the Celtics to 78 points. And I mean, you can probably count 6 or 7 or 8 of those are just like the intentional foul game towards the end of the game. And I just thought they shut down. I think Kristaps, I know he had a big fourth quarter, but he didn't do anything in the second and third quarters. And like aside from Tatum and Kristaps, like really nobody else went off. They actually held the Celtics to only 39 3-point attempts. And I know that was like slightly over 50% of their total 77 shots, but like it didn't feel like a barrage, like when we played I remember we played them the first game last year in the Garden, and that felt like a barrage. They put up 133 and we just had no hope.
It felt like we dodged the barrage in the first half to me, because some of their role players, specifically Hauser, got a lot of shots that I thought like we were lucky didn't go in, but in the second half those kind of went away. Like most of the shots were really well defended, whether it was Tatum or Brown or role players or whatever.
And even a couple the Kristaps made
Horford hit 2 that were like well defended. Like
no. The first one was not well defended. That was the Julius one. That was not well defended because Julius decided to be a fat loser. But yes, the other one was well defended. But even like I think Kristaps was 101. Kristaps made a crazy deep 3. That was actually well defended.
The bank 3.
No, that wasn't the bank 3. That was in the first half. But like it was.
The other one. Yeah.
And it was really well defended. Like RJ did a good job of putting pressure on Brown that he couldn't make the pass instantly. Hartenstein got out there. Actually, he got a good challenge in that time. And that was just a crazy shot. You got to tip your hat and move on.
Mm-hmm.
But like I thought the defense was good. I liked the rotations. Like I know everybody lost their mind in the fourth quarter because it was like, oh my God, why did he pull RJ with I think he pulled RJ with 7:30 left and he put him back in with 2. And I was like, look, that was not great. But here is what I would say. It was the first game that we had all 9 guys. This is his first chance in any game setting, preseason, regular season, whatever setting, to run that rotation. He probably went in with a okay, this is what ideally I want my rotation to be. And if the biggest gripe is that RJ didn't get back in until too late in the fourth quarter, then I think you would say he probably did a decent job, all things considered. Now, if you want to judge him on well, you should have realized what was happening in this game, and maybe Randle shouldn't have closed, and blah blah blah. I think that's fair, but I'm not going to kill him for that because I think it's okay the first time you have. Literally, I'm not like I can't exaggerate. This is literally the first time he has these 9 guys. And I know though people will be like, well, last year he did this with that 9-man rotation. Okay, but like this, the composition is different now. And what I really liked about what he did is in the first half and the second half is he took RJ out pretty early in both halves. I think he took RJ out with 6 minutes left in both, or 6 minutes left in the first and third quarters, and they put him back in before the end of the third quarter when Randle and Brunson sat. So at every point in time, the Knicks had at least 2 shot creators on the floor. This is stuff that he did not do last year. We killed him for this stuff. Like, this is stuff that we've killed him for consistently, right? He avoided that yesterday. He did a good job avoiding that yesterday. I think he deserves credit for that. And I like that, like, we had all the, what if he plays Sims at the 4? What if he plays Sims at the 4? Guess what? He didn't play Sims at the 4. I thought he coached a pretty solid game. I like the in-game adjustments. The offense is always going to be clunky because fundamentally we know what Thibs' offenses are. Are they efficient? Can they be efficient? Absolutely, but they're never going to be beautiful, flowing basketball. I'm okay with that. I thought he coached a good game. If the bigger takeaway for me is if this is the rotation, if this is how he's managing it moving forward, I think really the main adjustment he would need to make is be a little bit quicker on the trigger with, like, if he wants RJ in a game, I don't think it's fair to him to be like, oh, there's 2 minutes left, get back in there. You know what I mean? Like, I hate when coaches do that, not just Thibs thing, but anybody does that. Because it's just like, okay, now you're throwing him into the fucking fire here. Like, it's kind of rough to expect the guy to just come in and like deliver for you. But aside from that one thing, I was happy with what I saw. I thought he did a good job. And I really liked we talked about this over the summer where I was like, look, he's never, since Josh Hart has been there, Josh Hart had closed every single fucking game. Literally every single one. And he did it last night. And like that is huge, I think, for us as fans to see. But in general, like, if you were worried, like, well, I mean, a lot of people were worried, right? Like, well, if Hart's going to close every game, what does that mean for RJ? What does that mean for Quickley? What does that like? And lo and behold, like, he didn't close last night. And why? Because he wasn't playing well. And he had other guys that were playing well. And if that's how he managed it, that's fine. I would encourage him to apply the same logic to Brunson and Randle, perhaps, at times, if necessary. But, aside from that, like, I think he coached a pretty solid game. I think there were signs to be encouraged by in terms of, like, the Hart, Quickley, RJ stuff. And I will say the last thing before we like move on to broader subjects, we've talked about this over the summer. I felt this very strongly over summer. It was like, oh, well, DiVincenzo's here. It's going to really cut into Quickley's minutes. What is Quickley like? How many minutes is he going to get? I've never thought it was going to cut into Quickley's minutes. I've consistently thought it's going to cut into Grimes' minutes. And DiVincenzo didn't even play that well yesterday, and Grimes only got 23 minutes last night. I think that is something to keep an eye on, because whatever you want to say about how Thibs has managed Quickley's minutes and whatever, like, you can't actually argue that he hasn't played him a shit ton of minutes. He has. Maybe it's not the minutes you want him to play him. Maybe it's not the exact rotations, the role, whatever. But he's played him a lot of minutes. If Grimes sees his minutes get cut this season, and I'm not trying to doom monger here, maybe it was just a one-off game, like we've said for a lot of these things, just a one-off game. But that is something to keep an eye on. I am very curious about that. I think he values Quickley more than Grimes. I think Quickley is like,
yes, of course. Yeah. Like, that's what people like were worried about Quickley's minutes getting cut, but like, again, this dude closed like 25, 30 games late in the season.
Grimes, if you look at the
Grimes was the odd man out.
Yeah, Grimes was the one that like almost never closed. RJ would close.
RJ would close sometimes. Hart would close sometimes, and it was always Brunson and Quickley. Like, Thibs, like, he might be a stuffy boomer, but like,
well, he was a scoring guard in college.
He's a scoring guard, and he knows the net rating is his fucking middle name now, apparently. Like, this motherfucker loves net rating, bro. Get you someone who loves you.
They were there like, listen, if anybody asks you about Evan Fournier, here's what you say.
Thibs probably had that shit on deck, man. They didn't even need to feed him that. He was like, y'all see this shit? Y'all see this net rating, bro? Like, this, I know he might not know no other advanced stats, but he knows net rating. So like, Quickley's obviously like god level in that respect. And as far as shooting guards go, like he knows Quickley's better than Grimes. Like this isn't any slight on Grimes. Like he literally lets Quickley like take ISO step back threes on all NBA defenders. Like
there was a fun,
like I need people to like pause and think about that. Like Emmanuel Quickley was isolating versus Derek White and
Tatum
in
and
big
Drew.
Yeah, and Drew, all these motherfuckers. And he's like before it used to be like, okay, Quick is allowed to isolate versus bigs, but now Quick is allowed to do whatever the fuck it's. And then you notice when he plays with Brunson now, it's not just they're getting closer to the ideal balance, right? We've talked in the past about how like it would do Brunson help anyone and everybody else help if he gets a little more off ball reps because he's a great off ball shooter. But like they're not quite there yet, but it was a better balance yesterday than in there was times last season where Quickley like he would be closing, but he would just be like relegated to Grimes land in terms of his role. So over the course of the season, you saw that change and you saw that continue yesterday. And like there is a very large gap to me between Quickley and the other guards as far as like trust and Thibs. So like Grimes has trust in the sense that he's a better starting option than Evan Fournier, which is a low bar. But like in the beginning of the season, especially, like you're right, like it's something to watch because guess what? He's gonna give Dante a look. He's going to. He should, right? Dante's a hell of a fucking shooter. He might be a better shooter than Grimes. Like, it's just, it is what it is. Like, is Dante gonna surpass Grimes on the totem pole? I wouldn't bet against it, but like the point is, he's gonna look, and Thibs is not the biggest experimenter tweaker in the world as far as play styles or rosters, but like to your point, this is his 9-man rotation, and hasn't had this rotation before. He hasn't. So of course he's gonna fucking check it out. And yeah, someone's minutes are gonna get cut. And yeah, it's gonna be Grimes. It's not gonna be Quickley. Like
and it might fluctuate. Like there might be nights where Grimes plays 35 minutes and Quickley plays 20. Like it's gonna be what it is. Like I think people have to be okay with that.
You can't want Thibs to like not experiment and then he's experimenting and you're like, no, not like that.
Well, the only thing I will say is there does need to be nights though where like, okay, Julius, you're playing like shit. You don't need to close the game. Brunson, you're playing like a jackass. You don't need to close the game. I'm not saying that yesterday needed to be that game, by the way. I'm just saying in general, over the course of a season, if there are nights where those guys don't have it and other groups do, it's okay to close without those guys. They're big boys. They can handle it. It'll be fine.
I'll say this though. Like, and this is particularly for Brunson, but a little bit for Randle too. This is more just like my personal attitude on like basketball, but like to me, yesterday those guys throughout the whole game, including the fourth and the first, had just
nothing.
An insane amount of like, how the fuck did that not go in? Like,
well, not so much Julius. I don't know. Julius was just taking shots where you're like, I know what you're talking about, like the shots inside where you're like, of course Julius will make that eventually. But I just thought there were so many of his where I'm like, dude, please just kick it out to the 3 wide open shooters in front of your fucking face. Like, oh my God. But yes, Brunson did miss shots that were like, what the fuck?
And Brunson had more of them than Randle. But like even Randle, just a lot of his shots like in the paint, like you could totally pass it out. But like a lot of the times I'm just like, yo, that's like, how did that one also like everybody fucking plays pickup basketball. You've had days where it's just like, yo, I can't fucking buy a shot. Like that's real.
And also like it's the first game of the season. It's probably not the best time to just be like, oh, like you're not playing well tonight. I'm not, like that's how you get those guys to be like, fuck this guy, yo, I'm out of here. Like that's, you can't do that the first game of the season. So I don't think that would have been realistic, and I don't blame him for it. So I'm more talking about like broader picture stuff, like down the road in a month, 2 months or whatever, where it's like, okay, look, I think at this point, if they've closed every game, you're allowed to be like, listen, buddy, you don't got it today. All right. Let's move on from this game, and enough praise of Tom Thibodeau, my mortal enemy. I'm just kidding. He's not my mortal enemy. Boston Celtics.
Tom Thibodeau, best friend arc this season on Pod Strickland coming soon.
This is actually we're going to start calling it the Coach's Corner
This is when this is like in Thrones when Jaime Lannister was like just like fucking going on side quests with the good guys in like the later seasons.
Like good guys, do you just mean Brienne?
Yeah, Brienne and what's the mercenary guy? Bronn. Bronn?
Bronn, yeah, Bronn.
Yeah, Bronn too. They had a nice buddy comedy arc.
Yeah.
We got the fucking Game of Thrones elitist snob over here. Jesus fucking Christ.
It's a mediocre story arc, actually, as far as I'm concerned. All right. So obviously, the only other big piece of news really this week for the Knicks is that Emmanuel Quickley was not extended, which we know about. Also, that was good to see how he reacted yesterday because of that. I've expressed some thoughts on this already. I actually did a whole solo Strickland roll on this.
By the
but I know
time
you
this podcast is out, readers can instead of hearing our annoying voices, read our annoying voices in a column that we have coming out. That's right. I called it a column. It's professional like that. So check that out sometime tomorrow. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we kind of touched on this in a DM, but like maybe it's because I like baseball a lot, but even though extensions very much are the norm for good players in the NBA, I kind of I don't associate the RFA treatment with like a bad sign personally. In baseball, that sort of stuff is pretty common. In baseball, it's different, of course, also because you have like wilder injury risks and more year-to-year variation. But like,
also you can get like 17-year deals, which is nice.
Yeah, and that's why you got to really show the teams in baseball because you could just be like, oh, I just signed a 17-year deal. Now I suck like Giancarlo Stanton or half the other motherfuckers on the Yankees, and now I'm mad again. Great. Anyway, no, so like it to me like yes, is it a sign that the Knicks quote unquote like didn't believe in Quickly? No, I don't. I truly never thought that. Like, what it means is they have different perspectives on what they think the other should get or what they think Quickly should get, which is based not even at all on completely on Quickly's play. That's based on a lot of factors. Quickly's play, what they think the restricted free agent market next season is going to look like, what they looked at this year's, how they viewed this year's extensions, things like that. And if you look at this year's extensions, there's pretty much two groups of it. There's big money where you're talking guys who got 5-year extensions, ranging from Vassell and McDaniels up toward all the max guys like Bain, Halley, and all those dudes. And then you have a bunch of chump change contract extensions like Okongwu and Cole Anthony, where you're talking like 3 years, 4 years, 30 million, 40 million, 45 million, 50 million. And there's nothing in the middle. Nobody got 4 years, 100 million. Nobody got RJ Barrett money for the most part. So like it didn't, that wasn't even really surprising to me either, because the way the new CBA sets things up, like you're either a blue chip young guy like Vassell, who for all his flaws has crossed this nebulous threshold into blue chipness. And then you can have guys like Okongwu and Cole Anthony, where it's like, okay, they're bench players, and
Okongwu is about to become Bam.
Oh yeah. Just you guys wait. Capella's like Al Horford. That motherfucker's gonna be reliable till he's like 80 years old. Like Okongwu just needs to get out of there. But yeah, like Quickley is unique. We've spent countless hours talking about how yes, he comes off the bench, but he's one of the 5 best players on the Knicks, and he's one of the better players in the NBA period. So like, how does he fit into that paradigm of like quote unquote blue chip guys, most of whom are high draft picks, by the way, or guys who you're like, I know a bench player when I see one, right? He doesn't. That's why there was a disconnect. The Knicks were like, hey, we're going to try to use this paradigm, this market, to get a cheap deal. Don't be surprised at that, Knicks fans. Leon Rose has negotiated great deals for all these motherfuckers. Like, nobody's complaining like, oh, Mitch is so underpaid now, even though he fucking dominated an all-star front court last season in the playoffs. Like, This is how the Knicks roll. Like, if you're surprised that the Knicks are trying to get as great a deal as possible, then let me tell you, man, this ain't no old Knicks. This is Leon Rose Knicks. I'm not gonna say they're cheap, but they're just extremely calculating when it comes to how they negotiate contracts. And again, that's not a reflection of Quickley's ability or their evaluation of it. It's a reflection of what they thought they could get Emmanuel Quickley signed to. That's an entirely different thing. And like we saw it with DeAndre Ayton. Like, if there's a player who a team values, even if it's an awkward situation, they'll fucking keep him and then trade him later if they really have to. So like, to me, that was always the worst case scenario, was like they go into restricted free agency and either Quickley has an incredible season and gets that blue chip money, and then, oh no, the Knicks have to pay him for being really fucking good. Like, woe is me, right? Or he has a season more like last season where it's good, very good, but a lot of it is like impact metrics and and not raw counting stats and not as many explosions of like 30 points. And then they do what they did with Mitch and they sign him to a fucking great contract that's a steal. So like, I don't know, man. It was always kind of overblown. And I think a lot of this stems, and I wrote about this in the piece that'll come out, but like, I think a lot of this stems from Knicks fans just getting a little panicky and just being like, player who I love, who has overcome a lot of shit, who I'm rooting for, like, I want the security of knowing that he is valued right now how I value him as a fan. And I just think that's the way a lot of Knicks fans think.
I come at this a little bit differently. I think the Vassell contract sucks. I don't really care. Like, I don't think that's a good contract. I don't think he's good. I don't know why he got paid that contract. And I think if any other team gave it to him, we'd be talking about him a lot differently. Maybe he ends up being good. Maybe he's going to deliver on all this fucking promise that apparently
Prez,
I never knew that so many people were crunching Spurs tape last year until he signed the extension, because apparently he actually had a really good defensive year if you watched the film or whatever the fuck people were talking about. But no, I'm sorry. Like, I don't think he had a good defensive year. And actually, funny enough, I can report this. I watched the game last night, the Spurs-Dallas game. And funny enough, they had an anecdote on this broadcast. And this anecdote is that they sat down with Greg Popovich, who apparently sat down with both Keldon Johnson and Devin Vassell after last season and before this season, and told them those two were, guess what? Wait for it. They were the team's two worst defenders last season. This is what Greg Popovich told them. So I challenge anybody who claimed that actually Devin Vassell was good on defense last year. Your word against the guy that fucking coaches him, buddy. And I know who I'm taking. It's not fucking yours. Watching 30 minutes of fucking Spurs tape and condensed highlight footage because you're too busy making draft boards for the 2026 draft class. The Devin Vassell, that contract was stupid. And because that contract is stupid, I think it created issues for the Knicks. Now, I'm not saying that without that contract having gone out, they 100% would have been able to come to an agreement quickly. I don't know that. And quite honestly, I think the way that Quickley, look, this is a guy who clearly has a lot of self-confidence. I think not only does he have self-confidence, but I think he believes that he can be a starting point guard in this league, that he is a difference-making player. And guess what? I'm sure his agent has all the access to all the fancy numbers that we love espousing in his favor. He has every reason to believe that. He started, 21 games last year? His numbers were really good when he started. I think he averaged something like whatever it was, like 27, 5, and whatever. I mean, they were really good. You can look him up. His numbers, especially when he started without Brunson, so when he started a point guard, they're especially good. I think he probably looked at that, and he probably looked at RJ's contract, which is 107, 108, which is effectively what, it's Vassell's contract with one less year on it. And I think he rightfully looked at that and was like, give me that contract. Why not? What have I've done as much as these guys, if not more, specifically in the case of Devin fucking Vassell, who's done jack shit other than rack up a bunch of numbers shooting a bunch of dog shit mid-range shots on the Spurs last year, who were the worst team in fucking basketball. So other than that, Devin Vassell's done a lot in his career. But yeah, I think he rightfully looked at that and was like, oh yeah, these guys are, give me that. Why am I not worth that? And the Knicks have to approach it a little bit differently, right? They have to be like, well, look, you're not going to be the starting point guard. We love you, blah, blah, blah. But and then the other part of this, which I kind of understand where the Knicks are coming from. And this is why, I think people need to pump the brakes on, the Vassell contract is amazing. It's so good. Oh, the Jaden McDaniels. And I like Jaden McDaniels a lot, by the way.
Both
really
of those contracts have risks. I'm higher than you on Vassell, but, people think both of them are, these complete play. And this gets to another point I wanted to make that it's just kind of annoying. And we've talked about it a little bit, but, can you let players grow up? Can we just let the fucking players develop and get better over time? Not everybody's gonna be fucking Luka and just come out of the fucking wherever and score 30 points per game. Just because someone's good and a rising star, they don't have to be D Wade. Jaden McDaniels doesn't have to be fucking Andre Kirilenko yet. He can just be Jaden McDaniels. Anthony Edwards can just be fucking Anthony Edwards, dude. I know he's really good at the end of last season. And I know he appeared to be the leading shot taker for Team USA and certainly wasn't the leading pass maker, right? It's something that makes other discussions about the league worse, because when you talk about someone like Devin Vassell, it becomes controversial for some fucking reason. For me, even though I fucking love Devin Vassell and I love him as a prospect, and he's already cleared a lot of my expectations, calling a spade about his defense is he has defensive potential and he does yeah, that's all true. But guess what? That doesn't mean he's good at defense, dude. He still has to do that. You're in the NBA. You're not a draft prospect. You don't get by on what you might do sometime. He's a good shooter and he's shooting well. Great. Now let him work on the next things he has to work on, which is being a good defender and getting to the rim more than once per game. That's okay. It's okay for him to be decent with flaws that he's working on. It's okay for all these guys. And Jaden McDaniels is the same thing. He's an amazing defender. Probably, to me, one of the 3 best perimeter defenders in the NBA, if not the best. And guess what? Teams will not give a fuck about him on the 3-point line. I don't give a shit that he shot 40% on 2 per game or something.
He doesn't shoot the volume.
It's not unlike Josh Hart. Literally, it's literally not unlike Josh Hart. His shot might be a little prettier than Josh Hart, but I could tell you Josh Hart's 3-point shooting stats as the Knicks, and nobody's gonna give a shit on the other team. I promise you, he's the least respected shooter on the first 7 rotation guys on the Timberwolves, and he's not really busting it down any off the dribble moves either. So
yeah, and then
just fucking relax, guys.
Yeah, and I think, forgetting those guys, if you want to compare Quickley to guys that are kind of in the similar family tree of players, okay, Jordan Poole signed a 4/140 contract, and 128 of that is guaranteed or something. Tyler Hero signed a 4/120 contract that I don't know how much is guaranteed. I think most of it 108, 110, whatever it is. Those guys got money, and guess what? Jordan Poole got salary dumped a year after signing that extension. He got salary dumped. Tyler Hero was not desirable. He was not a player whose contract people want. And I'm not saying Quickley is guaranteed. This is not a knock on Quickley. This is just to say, if you're the Knicks, this is how you're looking at it. You can't approach it as it's no risk. I love Quickley much as anybody, but you can't approach it as no risk. You got to try to minimize your own risk as much as you can. You got to try to minimize your liability. So you're looking at this and you'll be like, hey, Quick, we love you, but here are the facts. You're not going to be a starting point guard here. And as good as you were in the regular season, you were not good in the playoffs, not offensively anyway. You were bad. You were flat out bad offensively in the playoffs. We can't pay you this number. Whether you just because the Timberwolves did a thing and the Spurs did a thing doesn't mean we have to be held to those choices because they're not our choices. And I'm sure that Quickley would have been like, okay, well, what about RJ? And they would have probably been like, well, look, just because we paid RJ what he got paid doesn't mean we 100% do it again. It also doesn't mean, RJ's starting. He's a starter.
He's also a 6'6" number 3 pick. Like that matters, unfortunately.
Right. And so like that's what it is. So I would imagine that these negotiations weren't necessarily acrimonious. I think they're probably factual. And at the end of the day,
I think they were just like, I understand where you're coming from, and we just can't agree right now.
And if Quickley wants the Jaden McDaniels number, he wants the Devin Vassell number, which I think he's entitled to ask for based on just the market, obviously. It's on him to go out there and earn it. And like, that's okay. I don't really have an issue with that. I don't have an issue with the Knicks saying, hey, we love you, but we can't go there right now. But if you put out another year like this, we're certainly happy to have a conversation next summer again. I also would say this, like, I know that as soon as he didn't sign the extension, there's a lot of like, oh man, he's on his way out. He's going to get traded. Like, I'm sorry. I don't agree with that at all. I think if anything,
it doesn't make any sense.
I actually think it reduces the odds that he goes, especially within the next year. If he's look at it this way, if he plays as well as yesterday, if he plays as well as he did last year, they're not going to trade him because he's too valuable. They want to win ball games. You're not going to get a player.
They don't downgrade.
Right. And the only way you would trade him in season is if it's in a package for a star that can effectively be another shot creator, right? And this is my problem when people are like, well, what if you could trade him for Anunoby? What if you could trade him for Anunoby? Like, even if you want to call that a lateral move, which I don't, but let's just say you want to call it a lateral move, but just it addresses some, oh, well, Anunoby gives us the big wing we don't have, blah, blah, blah. Fine. I'm not going to even get into the stuff with how it affects Grimes and why that would be very weird. Okay. Oh, Anunoby's not a shot creator. And we already saw in the playoffs last year what happened when Quickley and Randle played poorly. We saw how the offense cratered. How is Anunoby helping you at all? What fail-safe is he giving you? What added flexibility is he giving you offensively? None. He's giving you none. So this idea that, like, there's all these trades out here by the deadline they can get done is ridiculous. Like, oh, let's trade Quickley for Karl-Anthony Towns. Like, Deuce McBride is ready to play backup point. Based on what? Because you fucking had a nice fourth quarter in preseason game 2 against, like, the fucking, I don't even remember who the fuck we played. Oh, the Timberwolves? Like, really? That's the standard? Oh, he played well when we played the Celtics in preseason. Like, yeah, he played well. He was 6 of 18 from the floor. I'm not saying that tells you the whole story. But, like, this is what we're judging it on? Really? Like, basically a 1 game and a quarter of preseason basketball? He's ready to fucking take Quickley's role? Give me a fucking break, dude. Like, no shot. They're not going to take that risk in season. And if they did, Thibs would lose his mind. Like, I think Thibs would go fucking crazy if they did that shit, which is another reason why I don't think they will do it. So I think he's probably like, so I personally don't see him going out and trading season. Once it passes the deadline, if he's still on the roster, at that point, the Knicks almost kind of have to keep him because what do you get? Like, if you go back and look at the sign-in trades that have been done for restricted free agents in recent history, Lonzo Ball, that return was shit. And you can tell me, well, Lonzo's broken now. Yeah, but he wasn't broken then. And if we're going to be honest, there's a lot of Knicks fans that should raise their hands up high and admit that they wanted Lonzo Ball. He was the missing piece, is the point guard.
Couldn't be me.
Yeah. Were you a Lonzo guy?
Yeah, but not for us.
Yeah. Like
I'm saying it couldn't. Like I did. Yeah. I like because there was all the Knicks fans who were like, "Oh, he's the point guard," and I'm like, "He's really good." Also, not a point guard.
Yeah. So like, okay, that's one. Grant Williams, really good player. Like has extended playoff experience. He's played 25 minutes a night, 28 minutes a night for a title contender. He's been in an NBA Finals. That guy moved for like it was a fucking first round pick swap in 2028 or something, and that's because that's all that the fucking Mavericks could get, and they were kind of between a rock and a hard place. Okay, that's so like. And let's say that's what you could get for Quickley. That's appealing now? Really? Like that's fun? Like I don't get that. And then it's like, I mean, what else are you doing? Like these RFA trades are never good. They're never good. You never get the value of what you're giving up effectively. And like I just don't see the Knicks doing that. I'm sorry. Like, I think if push comes to shove and some teams like, hey, we're going to give him $30 million a year, the Knicks they'll hold their nose, take a deep gulp, and fucking bite the bullet. Like, they're going to do it because, yeah, he'll be the highest paid player on the team for a year. And guess what? After that year, Jalen Brunson's going to get a new contract. Julius Randle, if he's still here, might get a new contract. Now he's not going to be the highest paid player on the team. It's not that big of a deal. But I think they're willing to take that risk. And as long as they're willing to take the risk, I'm fine with it. What I'm not okay with is if they're going to sit there and it's like, well, we can't give him this much, so we have to move him now. It's like, I don't know. Like, to me, is if they don't, what it really boils down to is this. You don't want to be the Mavericks when they let Jalen Brunson walk. You don't want to be that team. You don't want to view this guy as expendable because you have a primary ball handler and because he gets a number that you don't want to pay him. It's not about what you want to pay him. It's about what he's worth. So if Quickley gets a contract, let's say he gets exactly what Brunson got, 4 years, 104. If the Knicks pass on that because they're like, well, it'll take us another apron, and I'll be like, well, tough shit. Like, that's what you got to do. You got to retain the asset. And if you don't, that's a huge, monumental fuck up it's a monumental fuck up by management, which I don't think
it would be the biggest. It would easily be the biggest own goal that this regime has had, which is why, like, at the risk of sounding homerish, like, they're not really in the business of that. Like, they haven't really done anything that comes close to like a big own goal. And that's why, to me, sure, Knicks fans are traumatized or whatever, but like, more likely it's exactly what you said. And like we've seen with Ayton, like, they're just going to sign him and keep him and then figure that shit out later. Like, if that means he goes out for Embiid, maybe they send out other people and they keep him. Like, I don't know. There's lots of ways it could go down, but like, really, it would just be antithetical to everything we know about Leon and Brock to really fumble this and just not want to pay him and lose him for nothing or whatever. And then on top of that, I'll just say, like, another, like, the big fear that I see from a lot of folks is like another team swooping in and, a wild overpay of an offer sheet. Like, that doesn't happen.
It rarely
like
happens.
literally that doesn't happen. That last time that happened, like, I think Macri
it was Hardaway Jr.
It was Tim Hardaway. Yeah, and that was what, like 2017?
Yeah.
Some shit. Yeah, like, literally, like, everybody was like, oh, somebody gonna like wild overpay for Cam Johnson? Like, no, nobody did that. Like, DeAndre Ayton got a large offer, which you could argue is an overpay for somebody who hasn't displayed that much shot creation, but he's also a number one pick who had a title run as a defensive anchor at a young age. So, like, he's not completely theoretical, even if he has some consistency issues, and he failed my fantasy team on day one of the 2023-24 season. But like, it's just, there's too many signs pointing towards more rational outcomes. And to go back to my initial philosophical armchair therapist spiel, like, I think a lot of this shit is just Knicks fans don't want to be hurt, and they've been hurt. But guys, this is a boring ass front office, man. They literally just fucking crunch numbers and make prudent, boring fucking decisions. That's like what they do.
I think it's a little bit more than that, though, because I think, and I don't like this because I don't think it's a binary. But I think a lot of it is, well, if you're going to pay RJ the number, why would you not pay Quickley the number? Because Quickley's been better by a lot of metrics. By basically any impact metric will tell you
by all of them.
Yeah, by every impact metric.
Aside from point per game.
By every metric that tries to capture efficiency, Quickley's been better. And so I think it's like, hey, well, if we're going to say we're going to pay our guys, we take care of our guys, if that's like our culture or whatever, that's cool. But then why don't you take care of this guy now? Like, what's the issue here? And I hear that, and I think that's a valid point. All I will say is, like, I think even if in their hearts they're like, he's not just worth this, but he deserves this, they have to be a little bit cold-hearted and be like, well, like,
It's a
if we have
fucking
to,
business.
yeah, well, if we have to pay him this next year, if we had to pay him this next summer, fine. But if we pay him this now, it can hurt our flexibility in terms of being able to execute a star trade because it puts us closer to the first apron, or it puts us in the first apron. It'll put us in the second apron, whatever. It hurts our ability to potentially re-sign Isaiah Hartenstein, to re-sign Deuce, whatever it is they want to do. I'm not saying these are all accurate reasons or 100% true reasons. There's all kinds of ways you can go with it. All I'm saying is that these are all parts of the decision-making process, and they have to weigh that just as much as they have to weigh like the individual evaluation of Emmanuel Quickley and what he's worth to their team. It only matters once or if or when they decide the number is just not worth the value. And at that point, we can have a conversation in terms of like how much they value him, did they undervalue him, whatever. But like for now, I don't think you can say that any of that for sure. All you can say is that they didn't come to an agreement, and Quickley gets to play for his money. He gets to show exactly he gets the showcase. Like Thibs is not going to not play him because Leon has a negotiation going on with him at the end of the year. Like that's not, and he's not going to play. He's not going to avoid playing him because they like need to trade him or whatever. Like there's no scenario where his playing time is getting dictated by the front office. It's kind of the point. And so he's going to have every opportunity to earn himself whatever contract he wants, and like, I think it's also worth mentioning, people forget this too. Like the bar for these guards, especially ones that aren't like highly drafted. And I mean, I know he was a high pedigree recruit, but he's not been he wasn't viewed that way once he got drafted, right? Once he stayed at Kentucky one more year, it's not viewed that way. But like he is, so Brunson was one, let's remember, he won 2 championships in college. He was a starting point guard on the championship team his last year in college. He was the Naismith Player of the Year. He got drafted in the second round. He made the playoffs 2 times in Dallas prior to his last season, and he was not very good in the playoffs, to the point that Carlisle basically benched him. So when it was time in that offseason for his final year in Dallas, talk extension, Dallas would not offer him an extension. And his max extension at the time was basically a 455, 456, the same thing that Austin Reeves just signed with the Lakers. They wouldn't offer him that. And they wanted to keep him as a trade asset through the trade deadline. So they didn't offer that to him then. They offered it to him after the trade deadline. He said, no, I'm going to hit free agency. And when he hit free agency, obviously the Knicks were waiting there with the bag. They gave him 4,104. And guess what? That contract is not universally viewed as some steal. And this is coming off of a stud playoff run. He was awesome in that playoffs. He had monster playoff games right off the bat, right from the jump. He was a monster. He played great all the way to a Western Conference Finals. And even then, that contract is not viewed as a steal. It wasn't even viewed necessarily as a value. It was viewed about, I think the way people put it is they paid market value. That was like the favorable reading, right? They paid market value for him. The unfavorable reading was really all this for Jalen Brunson. They paid all this for Jalen Brunson. So my point is, even if we love Quickley and we think he's a star and he's going to be a star and he does all these things and the box score doesn't capture his value and blah, 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 like this isn't how front offices will view it. And unfortunately, or whether you agree or disagree, think it's weighted too heavily or not, that playoff performance for him is going to weigh heavily. Like the teams are going to look at that. And if, like, I'll be honest, if he has a great regular season and he goes into the playoffs again and he doesn't perform at a high enough level, he's not going to get the contract he wants, no matter how good the regular season is. Because people will, now he'll get the label, right? He's a regular season guy. Can't do it in the playoffs. Like, fair or unfair, that's what's going to happen. So, yeah, the regular season matters, but the playoffs matter for him a lot. And that's really where I think a lot of his, if he wants a certain contract, he's going to have to play at a certain level when the playoffs come around offensively. Without that, it's not going to happen. I promise you. It won't. Again, and I hear it. I hear, when people be like, well, what has Devin Vassell done in the playoffs? What has Jaden McDaniels? They've done nothing. I agree with that. But they're wings.
Well, let me,
sorry,
on
it's
that
different.
point, that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. Is with a lot of these extensions, people forget, like, because Quickley has demonstrated much more than RJ. Like,
I'll just throw this out there. I'll throw this out there real quick before you go. Like, this happens. People don't do this in basketball for some reason. Well, they do it selectively. But, like, in football, there are certain positions you're going to get paid more than other positions because that position is more valuable. Like, a quarterback is more valuable than your right guard. Like a wide receiver is more valuable than your outside receiver is more valuable than your like a slot receiver. No matter how good the slot receiver is, an outside receiver at the top end is going to get paid more than an inside receiver at the top end. It's just how it works. So like this is the same concept as what is being experienced here. Where guess what, dude? Wings, especially ones drafted in the lottery, and even ones like Jaden McDaniels, who because he's 6'9" and he's a great defender and has shot the three decently well, and you can see the contours of a potential offensive, not star, but a high-level starter. I mean, he is a high-level starter already, but a high-level offensive player, potentially. Like, because of that, you'll take that bet. Is that right? I don't know. I kind of think size is overrated, overvalued, however you want to put it, in the NBA now. But that is how it is. I'm not saying how it should be. I'm saying how it is, you know? What's the P. Diddy line? You just mad because I tell it how it is and you tell it how it might be.
Yeah. And I was going to touch on a similar point without quoting one of the great sages of our time. And that's that extensions are very often about what a player might do. Shocking. And once upon a time, RJ had come off of a season of inefficiency with another inefficient season, but at a much higher usage with decent defense. And he was still 6'7". He was still jacked, and he was really good at driving. And 1 year before that, he had shot over 40% from three, and he was still extremely young. Like, that's when they decided to pay RJ. He had not had a single year where he really took a step back in any meaningful regard. I know he shot, you could say he took a step back from three between year 2 and year 3, where he went from, high percentage to a lower percentage, but he had much higher usage and he was the number one option and blah, blah, blah. So like, or not the number one option, but like he had number one option type usage stretches. So like, you got to erase last year and go back to the actual decision time when they extended him after during the Donnie negotiations. And I'm not saying everybody thought it was some fucking great deal, but like it was a wide acknowledgement that, you're paying RJ for what he could do in the future. And guess what? Devin Vassell got paid for what he could do in the future. Even though he's been dog shit at defense, still was a defensive prospect. Increased his 3-point rate. Was a pretty good mid-range shooter, even if he relied on it too much. Still 6'5", 6'6", increased his athleticism. Jaden McDaniels, elite defender, still hasn't done anything on offense. League's better than Devin Vassell, don't get me wrong, and RJ, but like,
here's the point,
theoretical on offense. He's getting paid for what he could be, and
we did this with RJ,
partly that's because of how tall they are.
Right, and we did this with RJ, and guess what? RJ had a bad season, right? Last year, we all
that happens sometimes.
Right. And here's the thing: how many people are now sitting there talking about RJ's contract as a steal? Who's saying that? Anybody saying that? Is a single soul saying that's a steal right now? No, they're not. Actually, I've seen a lot of people talk about it. It's neutral value. It's negative value, even maybe, right?
Right.
I've seen that. I've seen that conversation. Guess what? I can promise you in a year from now, if Jaden McDaniels makes zero offensive progress, if Devin Vassell is just getting empty numbers, racking up empty numbers on a terrible Spurs team, he's like, this is not going to, it's not going to be viewed positively. Like, it's just not. Those contracts will be viewed as negative value contracts, and
just like Jordan Poole,
right? And so like this is part of the equation. Like you can't assume no risk. You always have to assume downside. You always have to bake that in. And so like, even if you're the Knicks, right? If Quickley's agent's like, hey, look, like you gave RJ this deal, why the fuck not give me? Like, you can't tell me that RJ's been more impactful to your team over the last 3 years than Emmanuel Quickley, especially not last year, right? And they can be like, well, guess what? Like, you're right, but we think we overpaid on the RJ deal. So now what? right? Like if that's what they say, then like you can't be like, well, you made this decision. If they say, well, that was the wrong decision, shouldn't have paid him that much. Maybe we should have let him play another year.
Yeah, your comeback, if your IQ's agent can't be, do a wrong decision for us.
Yeah, like I'm not saying it's the wrong decision. I'm just saying like this is the weird back and forth agents gonna have, and I'm sure like Leon Rose also can't he can't actually say like actually the RJ contract is a mistake, so he has to like find some way to say that without quite saying it because you don't want shit like that to get out, and you definitely don't want to be telling that to some other agent. Like, hey, but that guy might just go to like, hey, RJ, guess what Leon told me the other day? You might be interested to hear this, buddy. But like, yeah, like I think it's a tough thing. And I feel bad for him. I will say this. This is the last part of this I want to talk about before we wrap up here. I'm very, very curious to see how all the minutes unfold this year. Because if you think this Quickley negotiation was tricky, the Quentin Grimes negotiation in a year from now is going to be a lot harder. Because guess what? Quentin Grimes, he can look at those guys and be like, well, I'm a wing. Your starting lineup sucked until I got in there. Really, it sucked. We all know this. I don't even need the numbers.
He can try to say he's a wing, but like there's enough plausible deniability there that they're like, you defend wings, dude.
Yeah, but he'll be
6'5", something magical happens when you're 6'5" in those negotiations, bro. 6'4" is like, I don't fucking know, man.
Yeah, but he'll be like, yeah, but I defend Jimmy Butler. You had me on Jason Tatum. You had me on Jaylen Brown. You put me on wings. I'm a wing.
I hear you. I'm just saying. I'm a little dubious. That's all.
I think it's going to be a tough negotiation because he's not going to get the offensive role he wants this year. It's not going to happen. And I don't think that brings down what he wants. Like, I think his ask is going to be very high. And rightfully so. I'd ask for the fucking moon if I were him too, because I'd be like, hey, well, just because you're not willing to give me the exact role I want, and just because I have to stand in the corner for this team doesn't mean I got to stand in the corner for every team, or it doesn't mean that I can't do more, right? And I think that's the tough part of this for them because, like, you got Quickley, who hopefully you're going to have to pay. You have the 2 extensions potentially, right, for Brunson and Randle in the pipeline. And then now you're going to have to negotiate an extension for Grimes potentially that would kick in a year later. And that's all very hard. But I'm very, very curious to see how this Quentin Grimes things work out because I do think he will be watching. I'm sure him, or maybe not him, but his agent anyway, watched this Quickley negotiation very intently and wanted to see how some things worked out because the other part of this too that he can go to with them is like, hey, remember that time? You remember that time that you traded for Donovan Mitchell, but then you didn't because you wanted to keep me? Yeah, I remember that time. And guess who else remembers that time? My fucking bank account remembers that time. So it's time to show me how much you value not trading for Donovan Mitchell. I don't know. I think it's going to be a very interesting negotiation. I think we now at least know that even if the Knicks want to sign their guys and re-sign their guys when they can, that they're not going to be held ransom. And I want to be clear. I am not saying Quickley was like, give me the fucking super max or I'm out of here. I'm just saying like they are going to play hardball even if they like these guys and they want to keep them. Like they will not just acquiesce to whatever demands are made.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even wrap my head around where the Knicks will be next offseason.
I wonder why.
What was that supposed to be? I can't. There's too many cap mechanics at play with fucking a possible Joel trade and all that shit. Like, who's gonna be left, who's not? I don't fucking know.
And then I mean, there's Hartenstein too. Like, this is a tricky next couple of years for the Knicks. And I, if nothing else, they've bought themselves a little time here. They bought themselves a little time to like wrap their head around what do we want to do? What is kind of like the new reality of the cap and how are we going to manage this and all that type of stuff. They've given themselves an opportunity now to the better part of a year here to plan out. But it's not easy. Like it's definitely not going to be easy for them to do it. So we've got to see how it works out. I am very curious though, because it's not just Quickley, right? It's Quickley, it's Hartenstein, even Deuce. Like, if you want to have a really fun conversation with Jeremy, talk to him about Deuce McBride and tradable salary. That'll fucking knock your socks off. But like,
Jeremy just catching nuclear strays at the end of the pod here.
Yeah, it's a really fun conversation if that's your thing. But like, it's a good point though. I mean, it's not a conversation that a lot of people want to have. Prez definitely doesn't want to have it ever.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, but like, these are all the stuff. These are all the things they have to weigh, right? What's the value of keeping our guys? What's the price point where we walk away? What can we get in trade that makes it worth it for us? How are we going to get a star? Can we get Joel Embiid? Can we get this guy? Or do we have to push our chips out another year? Like, it's all very, very interesting. And I'm very happy I don't have to make these decisions, because that would suck.
Yeah, that's why Leon gets the big bucks.
And that's why we get the Patreon bucks,
which we appreciate very much.
Yes. Thank you to all our patrons. Is there anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
Not really. I am not about to overanalyze. I know we love doing non-Knicks segments as the season goes on, but not today.
It's one game. Yeah, it's
not today.
I will say we did get confirmation yesterday that Mark Williams is the truth. So
yes, the Mark Williams agenda is alive and well.
The Mark Williams hive at Strickland, for some reason, a Knicks.
Unusually large hive.
A group of Knicks fans with a disproportionate number of Mark Williams stands. It exists. Yeah, pretty excited for basketball to be back. Excited to watch how all this stuff unfolds. All right, Prez, let people know where they can find you. Plug anything you'd like to plug.
You can find me at _Presidente on Twitter, and I will plug all of the beginning of season content at the Strickland that we got. We already did a roundtable. Miranda did a great recap, starting with historical anecdotes, which is like his super move. We got this Emmanuel Quickley extension column coming. There's a lot of good pieces coming, so check it out.
Yeah, and I will plug this column that me and Prez have coming out tomorrow. Hopefully it'll be out by the time you listen to this. And I will plug all the work at the Strickland. Check out Strictly NFL. It's really good. Con and Jeff are doing great work on there. They should have a very special guest next week, so keep an eye out for that. I'll also plug Takes from Obvious Bozos, which they just dropped their second episode last weekend. That is, again, with Drew and Zach doing great work. And I'll plug all the other work at the Strickland. I'll plug Matthew Miranda's wonderful recap of the opening game, as only the professor himself can capture. And aside from that, and I want to just shout out Gigi and Matt again for all the great work they did for the WNBA season. For us, it was great. And looking forward to what they have cooking for next year for the Liberty. All right, that is our show for today. Thank you to BetOnline for sponsoring it. Hope everybody has a great weekend, and I will see you on Monday. Knicks doubleheader tomorrow and Saturday. So good luck to them. Hopefully we beat the Hawks and the Cavs. That'd be great. I would think we play the Cavs. Do we play the Cavs? Is that we're playing?
No idea.
Let's see real quick. Let's do this real quick. All right. Knicks Pellet. Okay, so they play the Cavs on Tuesday, but they play the Hawks tomorrow on the road. Are they winning that?
I don't know. The Hawks are your favorite team, near title contenders, as I understand from being your co-host this summer. Especially now that Jalen Johnson is unleashed upon the masses.
Yeah, unfortunately, they were defeated by the All-Father Mark Williams yesterday.
Yeah, you can be powerful, but you can't be that powerful. So, let's hope we have a Mark Williams-like energy on our team.
Hawks tomorrow, Pelicans on Saturday. What do you think?
2 dubs.
All right. I will say they split. I think they win tomorrow and lose to the Pelicans on Saturday. All right. Thanks again, everybody, for listening, and I'll see you on Monday.